An unfolding mystery in Tennessee. An unidentified infant is found abandoned on a stranger's property. Then, in another county, the bodies of 4 people are recovered. Is there a connection? Is there a killer on the loose? Tonight, all the latest from this breaking story out of Tennessee.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And I remember growing up, and I don't know how many times I saw it on TV shows, cartoons, and other places, and in just stories about the old baby found on a doorstep, right? Someone opens their door and there's a baby there. Oh my goodness, where did this baby come from? And growing up, I never really thought that much about it. I was like, do people actually do that? Like, why would someone do that? Well, guess what happened in Tennessee? A real baby was left at a stranger's home. A beautiful little baby. Now, at first you think about this story and the baby was unidentified and you think about it like, wow, that's horrible. That's horrific. But then I take a step back and I'm like, a lot of times when we're dealing with perhaps a young parent who doesn't want to be a parent and has a baby, we've covered that story so many times. So it's not that story. So I'm like, okay, maybe there is some silver lining to this story involving an unidentified baby. We just have to find out who this baby is, who this baby belongs to, and try to figure out why the baby was left at this stranger's home. So while that mystery is going on in Tennessee, there's another mystery unfolding in another county pretty close by, a horrific death scene. 4 people dead. And you've got one case here, another case there, both mysteries, both extremely serious, and everyone's wondering, is there a connection? Is there a connection between this unidentified baby and these 4 bodies that were found? And tonight it's looking like there is a connection. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas joining us in studio. This story, everyone is talking about it tonight, Cody. So let's get, what is the latest that we know? And is there a definitive connection between this baby that is left and these 4 bodies that were recovered?
Well, Vinny, the short answer is yes, that there is a connection, but I'll walk you through how we got there. So this is a multi-agency investigation that happened all yesterday, Tuesday of this week, in Lake County in Dyer County, Tennessee. That's all in northwestern Tennessee. This 7-month-old baby, just 7 months, not even a year old yet, Vinny. Her name was Wesleyan. She was abandoned and just dropped off in a random stranger's yard just after 3 p.m. in broad open daylight. And of course, that guy called 911, which got the investigation going. Now, this all happened where she was dropped off in Tigrit, Tennessee. That's in Dyer County. We have a map here showing you, that's the map of Tennessee here. Tigrit in Dyer County was only about 40 miles away from where those other 4 bodies were found up in Tiptonville, Tennessee. That's in Lake County. They're neighboring counties not too far away, 30, 40 miles away, only about a 40-minute drive. Now, Vinny, let me walk you through the timeline of the events that happened yesterday that led to this baby getting found and those 4 bodies being discovered. So, as I had just mentioned, just after 3 p.m., the baby was found in a stranger's yard, little Westland, and 911 was called. 5:10 p.m., the Dyer County Sheriff's Office releases a statement saying they're looking for 3 people, a man by the name of Matthew Wilson, a woman named Adriana Williams, and another woman named Courtney Rose. Now, just before midnight, Vinny, Dyer County Sheriff's Office releases another statement saying 4 bodies were found further north in Lake County. And Vinny, to confirm that connection, the District Attorney Danny Goodman Jr., he serves in both Dyer and Lake County. He confirmed that these were all family members related to the baby. So, and 3 of those 4 bodies that were found were the 3 names that I had just mentioned. We have Matthew Wilson, 21 years old. That is the father of the baby. Adriana Williams, 20 years old. That is the mother of the baby. Courtney Rose, 38, the maternal grandmother, and Braden Williams, 15, the maternal uncle. And Vinny, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation confirmed that this is a homicide investigation, and there is also an active GoFundMe page created by what seems to be a friend of Matthew Wilson, the baby's father, where general donations are being given, you know, to go along with funeral costs and what have you. dealing with this horrendous tragedy here.
Absolutely. And the baby's alive, and everyone's trying to put the pieces together. Why was the baby spared? What is the connection to what happened here? Why was the baby left where the baby was left? Cody, thanks so much. Let's bring in another guest. Joining me now is an anchor for KFVS. Jeffrey Bullard is with us. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about the scene where these 4 victims were found?
So thank you very much for having me. First off, I also want to mention where we were at. It was Carrington Road, which is just a 2-minute drive to the nearby correctional facility. This Carrington Road, it was almost like a cul-de-sac, but it was so wooded you couldn't see from our drone just where the police were going. You could tell that it was in the woods, but you couldn't exactly tell where exactly those officers were. We were told on scene that it was a fairly large crime scene that they were investigating. Fast forward to around 4:30, we're getting ready to go live for our 5 o'clock live shot, and all of a sudden you see 2 Department of Transportation wreckers pull out a black Dodge Charger and a white SUV from what appeared to be the crime scene. So they couldn't comment on if those vehicles were exactly related. We do know it was pulled from the area of the crime scene in that nearby wooded area. But there are so many unknowns about the situation that I think really intrigues people because, you know, it's our job to report fact and not speculate on, you know, these people's lives. This is very real for them. We spoke to several neighbors who are just absolutely just, it's so shocking. You don't think something like that happens in your backyard, you know?
Absolutely. So do we know any details about how the victims died, and is this an active search for a killer tonight?
So the person in charge of the TBI, or at least the communications person that we spoke to, they were telling us that they're still looking for, and they very intentionally said, suspect or suspects. Somebody's out there still, long story short, from what we're being told at the moment.
And have they said anything about little baby Wesleyan, about why they believe she was spared, or how the timeline of when the baby was left and when the victims were killed?
I know it's very, you have so many questions, and we had so many questions whenever we were at the press conference, just trying to get a better understanding. They were basically telling us it's still under investigation. They weren't too clear with any answers. As well, back to your other questions that I accidentally skipped forward, the cause of death is still under investigation as well. So it's not entirely clear what everybody was doing out in this wooded area, because whenever, like I mentioned earlier, that cul-de-sac, it goes into a bike trail that goes on near Real Foot Creek. And so there's not a lot out there. It's mostly woods. So it makes you certainly wonder why they were out there. That's still an unknown. There's a lot of unknowns right now.
Absolutely. And we're looking at the video. Thank you so much. As we look at that video, and we can see it's very rural, I assume, right? It's consistent with what we're seeing here. So there wouldn't necessarily be surveillance cameras anywhere. A lot of the cases we cover here at Court TV, there's ring cameras, there's surveillance cameras, there's traffic cameras. Describe the area for us and your thoughts about the opportunity for there to be any sort of video that could be useful here.
Well, that's a really great point that you make up. Whenever we were telling neighbors about just kind of what was going on, because some of them were looking outside, seeing all these police cars, wanting to know what was going on. They didn't have camera footage. The closest nearby camera footage that there might be would be at the nearby correctional facility. But this is really, I mean, when you look at this as a person, it scares you. I mean, you go out there and you think, okay, there's no cameras around. It makes you wonder why there wasn't cameras there, you know?
Absolutely. And final question, I know you have to go. Jeffrey, you mentioned it's near a correctional facility. There's no indication, because a lot of people are thinking, did someone escape from the correctional facility? Is that what we're talking about here? There has not been any information like that that's been made public, or any talk of that, has there?
No, not that we've been made aware of. We just noticed whenever we talk about the location, it's about a 2-minute drive on Carrington Road. You actually split onto Carrington Road at the at the correctional facility. So nobody has brought that up, at least to my knowledge, if it has anything to do with an inmate or anything like that.
All right, Jeffrey Bullard, KFVS, thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to be on this story a lot, and we hope you can join us again. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, let's bring in our think tank. Joining us live in studio tonight, criminal defense attorney, former state attorney in Miami-Dade, former assistant DA in Atlanta, Daryl Cohen, criminal defense attorney, law professor Meg Strickler, and criminal defense attorney, the man behind the glasses, Josh Schiffer. This is a mystery. This is a mystery. I mean, we've got two significant events. They are connected. They are related. How and why, we don't know.
But remember, the baby was deposited randomly on someone's lawn. That we know.
It appears as random.
It appears random. There appears to be no connection. And then there are 3 bodies of the baby's relatives. I immediately go to the murder-suicide family drama that we see in domestic violence cases.
4 bodies, because there's a 15-year-old uncle also.
Yes, 15-year-old uncle. It's immediately where my mind goes, is that someone associated with this.
But they're looking for a suspect or suspects.
Oh, they're still out there. They took the baby, dropped off the baby, and are on the road.
Oh, so it's not, you don't believe it's anyone that's at the house?
No.
It's like someone at the house could have dropped the baby off first, and then...
There's the possibility that it would be the deposit the baby and then do the murder-suicide. But I think with what it appears to me, it would be... go to commit the crime, take the baby, and then leave the baby somewhere ostensibly safe. I don't know how safe someone's finding.
It's a very confusing.
Too much speculation. Yeah. We need to know the
Well, someone cared about the baby. Someone cared about the baby,
yes.
Because if this is a murder, right? If this is homicide, murder, whatever happened there, if the baby stays there in this remote area, they may never find the body for days, and that baby will die. Even if the killer doesn't take the life of the baby will just die, right? So someone cared enough to get the baby out of there and put the baby in a place where the baby would be found.
I agree with Meg and Josh. I think this is self-inflicted, but...
What do you mean self-inflicted?
I think someone self-inflicted murder on him or her, and then, but before that, murdered the other 3 people. But
so we're looking for a ghost right now.
Well, right now, we need to find out what the cause of death was. Once we know what the cause of death was, we can begin to speculate with a little more accuracy. Right now, we're PFA. We're picking from air, and we don't want to do that. What we do know is we've got a healthy baby. We're fortunate. We do know there are 4 people deceased.
So where does the investigation go? Let's talk about that. So if you're looking for someone, you're looking for a motive, trying to figure this out, where are they going? Are they diving into the cell phones of these family members?
Definitely looking at the cell phones, all the
They've got to be talking
messages.
to other relatives to see if there's anything going on.
And the cameras. They're going to look at the video surveillance of whatever they can find.
Yeah, I
for
don't
video
know how many
surveillance to give you a timeline of what they can see, because there will be some videos somewhere within that
and last
day.
known contact with the victims.
And it's things like the highway videos.
Yes.
You see these flock cameras and cameras scanning license plates. They create these giant databases so they can say, oh, here's a relative's car that was moving in this direction. And Daryl's right, the investigation's going to show us. From what I heard from the report was that it was kind of a big crime scene. That makes me immediately think of a case that I worked on where there was an attack with some chasing going on. And it wasn't walking into a room with all 3 victims. It was a seek and find, which makes things look really messy. And then what if a baby wasn't supposed to be there and is? You don't want to be with a baby on the run. I've seen Raising Arizona. That is not the way that you really want to go escape having committed
Right, but
a
this
crime.
was like cold-blooded assassin type person. Everyone would be dead. The baby would still be there. The baby would likely be dead. The bodies wouldn't be found for days. The only reason they found the bodies so quickly was because they found the baby.
Yeah.
Like, from the baby, they were looking for 3 adults. They were looking for mom, dad, and grandma. So how do you think they figured that out in 2 hours?
But maybe that's
way,
what the issue is that they're trying to figure out the baby. I apologize.
No, I was going to say there may very well be video. If the person who committed the murder, he or she, may very well have used his or her camera on his or her phone to video this. We don't know. What we do know is we've got a live baby and 4 victims.
Right, but we also have it seems it's 2 hours between the discovery of the baby and then putting the word out that we're looking for these 3 adults. Like, how do police figure out that the baby's connected to those 3 adults? We're talking about 40 miles away.
But maybe there was somebody who saw it, heard it, something like this, and then did not want to get involved.
Saw or heard what?
Gosh knows what happened. We don't know what happened. But maybe they saw it, heard it, were involved with it in some which way, I don't know. But maybe that's who they're looking for, is the person that delivered the baby.
And there may very well have been something attached to the baby or in the baby's crib that said
That would
her
lead to
name
the
is
parents.
X.
Yeah.
We just
But it was,
don't know.
it was
Yeah.
mom, dad, and grandma specifically they were looking for, right? 40 miles away, 40 minutes away, in the middle of nowhere, right?
And we don't know what connection they have to this land necessarily. Is this a random piece of land, or is this some place that they're known to frequent, inhabit, live? There's a lot of investigation that's going to come out. It is quickly putting together the dots, though. That 40 miles and a baby without a name, it's pretty tough to identify a baby. They don't answer questions very easily.
They don't.
No.
One more fly in the ointment. We know it's near a penal institution. Is that for misdemeanors? Is it for felonies? Has there been an escape? Do we know? We
If there was
don't.
an escape, they would have to tell us, right?
it's a
They'd
red
have
herring.
to make that public, wouldn't
At
they?
some point.
They would have locked down that facility in the first moment they found out about a murder
I
2
agree.
minutes away. That facility
Yeah.
gets the red button, and it's
So you're
on
taking that
lockdown.
off the table, but you're thinking
not-
you're not taking it off the table.
No, I'm not taking anything off the table yet.
Until we hear.
Yet.
Smart.
Until we hear.
That's not, it's too much speculation right now.
To me, the timing, I still don't know how you go from baby to we know who the baby belongs to that quickly.
That's a big jump.
I don't
real
think
quick.
so. I think
It
there
would be a
was
big jump
something
if they were
left.
next door neighbors, like the
But
neighbor
there's
says, oh
something
yeah,
out
that's
there.
so-and-so's
I think
baby.
there
Probably
was
something with the
some
baby, like you
forensic
said.
evidence left with
Yes.
that baby identifying that child.
Yep.
That's why your mom put that sticker on all your clothes.
Precisely.
That's how it works.
I don't know.
I'm chipped.
That's your
Do you
kids
think the
that chipped
killer knew that by leaving the baby there that they were going to find the bodies quicker?
There's probably, like, I think Dow has said, like a note was there or some sort of indication with the baby that made them be able to leap very quickly.
And really, are you going to try to ascribe logic to someone who part of their day involved depositing a baby on a lawn? They're not necessarily
No, but
using
there is some
logical-
logic here because that person took the time to remove the baby from a scene where the baby would have died.
It may not be logic, it may be love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't seem like sometimes we've seen cases like this, the parents are split. It seems like mom and dad were together living with grandma and the uncle who's only 15 years old. But so it doesn't seem like that necessarily is a part of this. I'm thinking of the Pike County case where it was, you know, that's what it was all about. It was all about the kids and custody, and it was family feud. It was the destruction of an entire family in that case.
But they're so young.
This
All
is
of
a
those
really
people
young
are
family.
So young.
And it's impossible to speculate as to what somebody's burden is
Should
on
the
any
public
one
be
day.
scared tonight? The folks
No.
who live in the
No.
area?
Absolutely no.
You know
Not
this
at
is
all.
directed.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is
directed.
very specific.
Yes.
I think it's
Not a madman.
No.
maybe madman or
Yeah,
mad
true.
person,
But it's
not-
directly related to
not
the
anything
family.
to do with the public.
Not a
as
serial
it's
killer,
direct.
not a
No.
random
No.
killer.
No, not at all.
And I bet you the social media of all of those individuals will give some information that'll be very useful. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be on, because they're also young. They're going to be out there on
You're
Snap,
eliminating an
Discord.
entire family.
I know, literally.